MysteryWire.com, home of the unusual and unknown. From Area 51 to the paranormal, it's your source to the most vetted UFO stories and special investigations in the world. Take a journey into the universe of MysteryWire.com.
Jeremy, good to have you back. 2019, remarkable things happening on both coasts. Back in April, you and I jointly released some incredible images, starting with the 3 photographs taken by an FA-18 crew off the coast of Virginia, still unidentified, images that are in the briefing presentation prepared by the UAP task force and delivered to members of Congress, Joint Chiefs, intelligence agencies. And then 2 days later, April 8th, we released some amazing images that you've acquired and that we have confirmed regarding the several ships in the Pacific Fleet that were under surveillance by a number of unidentifieds, call them drones, call them UAVs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. This was a series of events that is well documented. And one of the key ships that was identified by you and that came from the UAP task force briefing document involves the USS Omaha. Now, as we know, the Pentagon came forward, confirmed that the images were real, but this slide that you obtained about the USS Omaha seems to be one that they were kind of fuzzy about. Do you have an idea about why they were sort of reluctant to go as far as they did with this image as opposed to the other images that you presented?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. Let me recap for a second here. We released a lot of content. You released 3 images from an FA-18 over the East Coast, verified part of the study of the UAPTF UFO studies. Then together we released 6 new images, 3 of which were of the pyramidal shape object, the UFOs, and then the other was 3 of this USS Omaha, which they described these as spherical unmanned aerial platforms, maybe UFOs going into the water. Then we also released the kind of now iconic pyramidal and triangular shaped video. So it's like a mother lode. Then a little time after, I released another still image, an image that wasn't contained as a still image in the UAPTF UFO reports from May 1st, 2020. So why did the Pentagon instantly confirm the USS Russell pyramidal shaped UFOs and not the USS Omaha? That confused me too. Why confirm anything? I now suspect that they didn't have all of that data and information. And upon my search and trying to find people that would know, that were in a position to know, I have heard through word on the wash, that now the UAPTF has a lot more data than before. So this is so cool. This is where reporting, you and I are reporting, and it's influencing the knowledge base of governmental organizations that can now take this seriously and put it into, hopefully, the summer release of information. So to answer your question very succinctly, the reason I think that the triangular and pyramid-shaped UFO footage was confirmed and the USS Omaha USO, unidentified submerging object, was not confirmed directly, although it's a play on words, is because I think when we're breaking news, people are playing catch-up, George.
The slide created for the UAP Task Force briefing document shows the USS Omaha. It is a still image. There's been a lot of speculation, as you know, online and in the UFO world, that it might be a still image taken from a video. We can now confirm that is the fact, right?
Yeah. So in fact, what happened was when these huge series of events happened in a warning area off the coast of San Diego, there were so many ships involved and there were so many things happening that some of the people on the ships were tasked with putting reports up the chain of command. They didn't know it was going to go to UAPTF. They're just doing these reports because that's their job. And these are unknowns, unidentifieds with peculiar functionalities. So all of a sudden, you and I released these UAPTF images that were part of this intelligence report. all unclassified. And all of a sudden people realize, well, these are stills that were prepared. It's a briefing, which means it was brief. There's a lot more data. There's full video of this thing allegedly or seemingly descending and going into the water without destruction. So the essence of this is it would be very easy to assume that these images came from video. And you and I can now not only confirm that, but we can release part of that.
Let's set the stage of where this is happening. Now, we have a map that shows where the USS Omaha is. As mentioned earlier, there were several ships involved. A friend of ours, a mutual friend, Tyler Rogaway, wrote for The Drive, and he got a lot of FOIA information, ship logs that established where various ships were when the things happened to them. In that same time period, the USS Omaha was buzzed by craft at a position that we'll show on this map, just sort of straight west from San Diego, west of the Channel Islands. It was buzzed over a period of days, right? From what you've learned.
It was. So Tyler Rogaway is like the only journalist that has got everything right so far when it comes to ship positions and that kind of thing. He's very thorough, and I really appreciate what he put out. Now, the Omaha wasn't listed on his map, but I talked to him about that. It's possible the Omaha came in from over 100 miles away on the 15th, the next day. But all of this activity is in an area, and there were more ships involved than people know. And they all had kind of different experiences, although, there were similarities. But what we're about to show people is the exact GPS location of the USS Omaha at the height of this event series, particularly the exact time and location when this object drops into the water. Now, it shows you the location of the USS Omaha to the exact degree with coordinates, and you'll see that in your bottom left of the screen. So what I'm saying is the footage I have, we've confirmed and validated. George and I, just so everybody knows, we've confirmed and validated. It took us some time. And I think everybody's going to find out, and they're going to confirm and get it validated for themselves. But we got it confirmed and validated. So this footage you're seeing is authentic, whatever it is. It is real Navy footage filmed on the Sapphire, which is a FLIR system, from the ship, live.
Here he goes. We'll play the video.
Took off, booking it.
Break Omaha, Pickney Kid, Rafael Peralta, passive ability to launch helo ASAP.
Splashing your bearing range.
Sure. You got 2 winds, 3 knots.
Keep going, bro. Let's go down.
We're making 10s. We could probably bring that 35 relative. Sir.
Yeah, I'll bring it down.
We got a lot of white water out there, some 6-foot swells.
Whoa, it's getting close.
Yeah, we have 31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
Whoa, splashed. Mark bearing and range.
Jeremy, explain where that video is recorded. So it's not somebody standing on the side of the ship looking over the edge. It's inside the ship in the command center, right?
Yeah, what you're seeing is footage from within the CIC, which is the Combat Information Center, and that's live. That's as this was happening. That's as they're tracking these targets, and that's as you're seeing one of the targets appear to become transmedium and go into the water.
So you can hear the excitement of the people who are watching this unfold. They don't know what this thing is.
Also, passive ability to launch helo ASAP.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This was a very unique event series. This is something that none of them had really experienced prior in this way. You do hear the excitement. So if you think about the iconic footage of the Go Fast video, or you think about the iconic footage of the gimbal video, we are now able, as a society, to really look at this UFO footage and understand what FLIR is, what thermal imagery is, why it's black and white, what we should be seeing if something had rotors or fins or tails, and what we're not seeing. So you do hear the excitement. And something I think is worth mentioning is just like how you're hearing, it's going against the wind at 130 knots or whatever it was said in the gimbal video. We're hearing and seeing something like that in this video. When they say splash, splash, that doesn't mean there was a physical splash. That means this object went into the water, or they suspect it did, and they did carry out. There was a search that was underway. You heard them say, send out helos or whatever, but the wind was really choppy, and the water was really choppy. But I did report, and I'm standing behind it. There was a search by a submarine that was unsuccessful. They did not find wreckage, and this object was not small. I'll just put it to you that way for now, but there's ways for me to qualify that. But when you hear their excitement and they say, mark the bearing and range, splash, splash.
What was splashed? Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
And they say, mark the bearing and range, splash, splash, whoa, splash. I mean, that is an equivalent to the air footage we have, but this is now going into the sea.
It occurs to me that this went on for quite a while, an hour. 11 o'clock at night, right? That's when it happened. 11 o'clock at night. It's dark out there in the middle of the ocean. And this object, the dimensions of which we will describe later, but it's a spherical object that travels right along with the ship for a period of time. Like, hey, take pictures of me.
Oh, no, there was a lot of actions. Yeah. So let's talk about the actions of these craft and what was going on. That's important to clarify. But just to nail down one point, I told everybody that when I said 11 p.m., I meant 11 p.m., not 11:01. So everybody can now look in the bottom right. You can confirm that it's the 15th of July, 2019. You can also confirm that the object appears to descend into the water at precisely 11 p.m. Pacific time. Now the indicators that you see on screen, you're going to see, I think, a different date. You're going to see the 16th at 6 a.m. because that's general mean time. But that ship, where it was with those GPS coordinates, they're in the Pacific time zone. So people will be a little confused at first, but understand it's 11 p.m. sharp at exactly July 15th at the coordinates you see in the left side of the screen.
I'm not sure how far we can go in this conversation, but there is more to be revealed. So is that object alone, or were there other objects that looked like this sphere traveling with it?
Okay, so the object was not alone. This was a swarm. I think it's fair to say that there was a minimum of 14 objects, and that's a minimum. There could have been more. That's at one time on the S-band radar screens. So yeah, there you go. That's what I know to the best of my understanding from individuals who have been in a position to know multiple individuals.
The USS Omaha is what is called a not literal, but literal combat ship built to be small and fast and maneuverable and suitable for multiple kinds of missions. The ships were created to a lot of different kinds of roles: anti-submarine warfare, anti-mines, anti-surface warfare, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, special ops. So it's jam-packed with sophisticated sensors. It should be able to see unidentified craft that are heading its way. It should be able to get it on radar, sonar, various sensors. Can you describe how successful the various sensors on the Omaha were in terms of tracking these things, keeping them in their sights, and then seeing when they leave?
Yeah, so I think I should reiterate, everything that we are releasing is unclassified. People are going to understand more about that as we go forward, but I just like to be very clear that it's possible that this footage is not contained in classified reports that we've reported on before. This might be fresh information for a lot of people. So just to back up a second, everything we're releasing is unclassified. There are numerous sensor systems on a craft as cool as the USS Omaha. The two I think are worth talking about is there's SPS-77, which is like an air search technology. It's a very interesting technology. But I would say I'd put a little bit more weight on the S-band radar. And that's something that I think we're going to report on more later. We know from these systems, the shape is probably very similar to what you're seeing in that video. Kind of like the Tic Tac video, when Commander Underwood said that, look, you should be able to see wings and rotors and plumes and wash, and you don't see any of that. I would argue very successfully, I think, that you would see similar aspects in this footage if they were there. Additionally, there's certain types of, so that's with the Sapphire FLIR system. With the S-band radar, if we were to get more into that in the weeks to come, I would suspect there's a minimum size that could be picked up by the S-band radar. And I would suspect that things getting picked up by S-band radar would probably be at least 6 feet in diameter spherically of solid mass. That means no like sticks with rotors on them reaching out 6 feet. I'm talking about an actual mass of at least 6 feet, if that makes sense.
So there were 14 of these things at any given time. And my understanding is there was difficulty in keeping track of all of them in terms of whatever sensor systems were being used. The one that we're watching, we're going to see the video again in a second. The one that we're watching on that screen, what technology is showing us that image? Because it's pitch black. It's 11 o'clock at night. It's dark out there. What system is being used to show that image on screen?
Okay, so the way people will understand it is just like you've seen in the Tic Tac, the gimbal, and the Go Fast. It's a FLIR technology, which is a thermal technology. That's why you're seeing it in black and white, because it is pitch black. You're out at sea. So it's showing the differentials of thermal from how I understand it. It's called a Sapphire system. And that's something that I think people will start looking into now, but it's made by FLIR. It's the same type of system.
Let's watch the video again, and we'll stop it at a couple of points to remark about some of what we're hearing.
Break Omaha, 15 kid, Rockwell Peralta, pass ability to launch helo ASAP.
Splashing the brand new.
Sure. Got 2 minutes, 30 knots.
Keep going, bro.
We're making 10, so we can probably bring that 35 relative windy. Sir.
Yeah, bring it down.
We got a lot of white water out there, some 6-foot swells.
Whoa, it's getting close.
Yeah, we have 31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
All right, we're stopping it there, Jeremy. So, it's out in the ocean. It's at night. Winds are blowing at 35 knots per mile, I guess. 35 knots, which is 1.15 times miles per hour, I think is how you calculate it. So roughly 40 miles per hour. And this thing is just sitting there traveling right along.
Yeah, so that is interesting. Look, I did mention that these were sizable machines, and that's something to take into consideration. These aren't commercial drones or even how we understand military drones to be. The gusts of wind were intense at the time, great. But the big thing that gets me, and this is evidence that will be provided at a later date, these objects were in varying speeds from 40, the objects themselves, the UFOs, from 40 knots all the way to up to 138 knots, so almost 150 miles an hour. I know the drones we have, the thing that was most interesting to a lot of individuals involved with witnessing and recording and documenting and being part of this event series was the longevity, the duration, the endurance, as they would say, of these objects. I mean, they lasted way over an hour out there. So to have high-powered lights, to be that brazen, to make all the maneuvers, to be fighting against the wind, to be hitting speeds like that, and then slowing down, that takes battery power. So this is fascinating. And also, they never found where these things came from or went to. So they don't know where they're launching from or going from. I mean, maybe it's the water, because that's what we're seeing one do. We know for sure one appears to go into the water. I don't know. There's more questions than there are answers. I would love for this to be US, American technology that just somehow everybody's miscommunicating on. However, I do see that if that is true, then it doesn't matter whose they are. This represents a technology that is profound just on the energy conservation of propulsion. So that's interesting to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, also what we're not seeing rotors or exhaust, any evidence of any known propulsion system. That's just the flying part. And then something else happens that we're going to see now. We'll just continue the video.
31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
What? Splashed.
All right, Jeremy, when they say splash, I don't see a splash. So splash doesn't mean literally splash, right?
Yeah, correct. This is something just meaning it appears to have gone into the water. And that's what they're saying, like a splashdown. It's just a term. It has nothing to do with a splash. You notice that immediately they want to find out, maybe send out a helicopter, like find out how, retrieve the parts maybe. But again, I'll tell you, I'll stand firmly behind this. There was a sub that went and found nothing. So no destruction. And it was a sizable object. So splash means that's when it appears to descend into the water like a trans-medium vehicle would, where something can go from air to sea to sky to space without resistance in a way. I'm hoping that's what it was.
I mean, we call it a drone, or it might be called a UAV or a UAS, whatever you want to call it. It's flying along beside this ship for an hour or so. Then after it figures it's got enough close-ups, it goes into the water. Pretty dramatic little incident there. And then there were attempts to pursue it, to figure out what happened, to look for debris if it crashed, to see where it went. I mean, this is a surveillance ship. It's packed with surveillance gear. It has other ships and assets around it that went looking for this thing. Did they find it?
They did not find it. And really, let's take a step back. We don't know when these objects were appearing and disappearing at one time, 14 with this event series over the course of 3 days. That was the largest number on the screen. We don't know if they were going in and out constantly of the water. We can't make the assumption that we know. We've got one that appears to be going in the water. Again, appears to be, because there was no destruction. There was no craft. There was nothing they could find. That's why people are thinking it's transmedium. It was going in the water to be able to go. And we just don't know. We do know that these things were illuminated. And that's what's so interesting. It's so brazen. These things were swarming, not just, kind of like far off, but there were many that were all around in different areas on the ship. There might be footage from the deck of the ship, filming up into inky darkness of lights. That gives you a reason or an understanding of why these would be designated drones. The people involved that I think would have been in a position to have influence or say on how these things were designated, the biggest comments that I've been getting is that drone was just this catch-all phrase because of the maneuverability, because of the size, not of any body that they saw, not of any rotors that they heard, but just of the ball of light that was observable. So this idea that it was drone was really, some people said to me that they felt that they had failed in their duties, that this should have been investigated better, that for some reason it was like as if they were more curious than they were threatened. And so this idea that these are drones, okay, cool. Well, the people that actually made that designation aren't saying that they know they're drones. So the idea is, who has the capabilities that these technologies represent? That's what we want to know, because we can figure out intent once we know who is behind it.
Well, I mean, I think Chris Mellon and maybe some others have said, if some foreign power has been able to take this kind of a technological leap where it can create objects with no known propulsion system that can sneak up on a surveillance ship, a ship designed for surveillance, and then disappear, and you can't track it. You don't know where it came from. It performs things that we can't do. It can fly along and then go into the ocean and disappear. That's technology we don't have, and it would represent a massive intelligence failure on our part if that technology belongs to China or Russia or some other adversary.
Yeah, look, if the this one particular UFO, USO, UAP, whatever you want to call it, if it did go into the water without destruction as it appears, I mean, this is huge. This is transmedium vehicles. We do not have that. So everything is identified. Well, I mean, we have that, but not in the capabilities we're seeing. So everything is identified till is unidentified. Everything is unidentified until identified. So even in the UAPTF reports that we have been exposed to some degree, the world has, they don't know what these things are, but we do know what they're not. And that's important. These are not conventional drones as we know them. If they are transmedium, that just the flight power alone to be out there, it's very interesting. And we start looking at different cases, like the Tic Tac case, the gimbal case, and you start putting these in that mosaic, man, this becomes really interesting because the question is, we can defend against drones. We have that capability. Drones are not a problem for the United States. This is something Lou has said. This is not me saying it. So with that said, what's going on here that spans so many ships over the course of so many days that everybody's recording and documenting? We have everything from pyramidal shaped objects to these spherical lit up transmedium, it appears, vehicles that drop into the water. This is astounding. Whoever has this technology, we gotta find out who it is.
So we are jointly releasing this material, You on Extraordinary Beliefs and us on Mystery Wire, Friday, high noon, and the world can look at it and debate. And hopefully in the days ahead, we'll get a statement from the Pentagon or whether or not they acknowledge this video as being also recorded by the Navy, and whether or not maybe the UAP task force is now taking a look at the same images that we have shared with the world.
Yeah, look, if we can have a positive influence on the process that is underway right now to inform the American and global public about the nature of the presence of UFOs on planet Earth, if we can provide more information that then has to be included in the UAP task force mission and what they're doing, they can get a full-time staff for this, and we can get a great report in the summer. Man, that would be so cool. But all we're doing, you and I, are presenting information that we know to be accurate in that it is real Navy footage, that these events happened as we described. It is now up to the public to analyze, to look, to ask questions, to knock on doors. We're just providing some information saying, we don't know. These are unidentifieds, but they're really cool.
Yeah. All right. And suffice to say, we'll have further details about this image and maybe some other things coming real soon.
Right. Yes, there is.
Thanks, Jeremy. All right.
Thank you.